Welcome to round 4 of the Go-Kart Championship in 2019. This round comes from Filching Manor. I know we're back here once again. We're back here to do some filming for university back in March when this took place, and we felt like it was time to sort of do a Go-Kart Championship round. We might as well, as we're there. And this is actually the first time I have not taken part in the race at all since the championship started back in 2014. I decided to sit this one out, and that is because Tom L, who's my sort of championship competitor in a way, did not attend this round either, so I wanted to try and make this as fair as possible. But this did give a large opportunity for George, my dad, and John to close in at the championship at the top of the field. So they're all racing today, and alongside them is also Kalen. So 4 karts on the grid here today. We're on board with George. Kalen is starting on pole position in terms of we're just putting out in a random order, and the pole position points will go to the person who gets the fastest lap over the 3 races. So we'll speak about that a little bit later on. But we're on board with George, and we're looking to the lights here, and the lights are out, and away we go here for the 4th round of the season. George gets a great start heading up to the first corner. He's going to be leading into turn number 1, and he's going to be looking to try and grab a victory or 2 here today. George, you can see, has already got out a big lead here as we're on board with John. Go through the first couple of corners. It's very close, but they've done a good job getting through there, getting past Kalen, who of course is stepping into a go-kart for the first time in a very long time. He hasn't actually been racing, or he hasn't really ever raced. He's gone in a go-kart before, but that was apparently like 5 or 6 years ago, so quite a long time, so he's still getting used to it. And Filching Manor is a very demanding track. If you don't know it, and if you're not used to it, it's a bit of a shock, let's be honest. If you've never driven it before, go and give it a go. I really enjoy it. So on board here, my dad, he's getting stuck up behind Kalen here. He's got behind him for a long time there, and that's actually lost him quite a significant amount of time. You can see John and George are nowhere to be seen, so my dad here on the first lap of the race lost a lot of time there trying to get past Kalen, but now he's past him into 3rd place here. We go to the bottom of the track here. John is side by side with George as they're heading up to the top corner. George pulls ahead with the lightweight feature of himself and up to the top hairpin. Is John going to look to the inside? It doesn't look like he is. George is actually later on the brakes. He kind of messes up the corner there, and he goes in quite deep, and he just managed to get it steered in. But John is now right onto the back of him through the twisty part of the track, where John is definitely better than George. But over the bumpy bit, George lifts off. I think he gets sort of thrown around in the car a little bit there. That's why he has to lift off through that section. And John going for the undercut here, out of the last corner there, side by side, up across the start-finish line, but George powers across in front, but then gets sideways through that first corner, and then George is now relegated to 2nd position. Is he going to look to the inside of John into the braking zone? Yes, he is. He's later on the brakes. He goes in once again a little bit too deep, but it's side by side between the two of them. There's a little bit of contact, but John does finally get past after a little bit of a robust move, but you know, he couldn't really disappear. He was already around the outside there, and George sort of just lost the position by that point, so that is just fair enough. But George, you know, putting up a good defence there in the opening laps of this race. He did a good job there of trying to make sure that John didn't just get into the lead and then pull away with it. He got the overtake redone, and fair play to him there. Now on board with Kalen here. I wanted to give him a bit of airtime because, of course, even though he's sort of really lapping himself right now, ooh, a little bit of a half spin there as John and George both go past. But nonetheless, Kalen deserves a little bit of airtime here because, you know, he's giving it a go for the first time, and I wanted to show that he is just really learning here. And ooh, a little bit wide over there, but you know, it's just all exploring the track. You know, it may look like very weird going from one of these GoPros to Kalen's, because of course the rest of the people in this field have got a bit more experience, but nonetheless it's just part of the learning time here at Filching Manor. It definitely doesn't sort of come to you straight away. It is a very tricky track. So on board with George once again. He's trying to close down John for the lead. Of course, George has already won a race this season. John's already won a couple of races, including last time out at Filching Manor. He took the reverse grid race at the end of the day, but it wasn't as easy as that. It wasn't him starting on pole position and getting the victory. It was actually him coming through the field, I think, dropping to 4th place, fighting his way up to 3rd, and in the last couple of laps there was contact between myself and Tom, which meant that John could go through and take the win, and I think a deserved victory. He was there at the right place at the right time. The pace wasn't always quite there throughout the race, but you know, fair play to him. He did a good job, and he secured the victory, the 2nd for him this season so far. But he's in a good position right now. He's leading this race. My dad has had a tricky race, actually, to be fair. He's down in 3rd place, and Kane, of course, down in 4th place, but it's sort of all strung out at this point here. John is leading this one quite comfortably. George has got a nice lead over my dad, who's in 3rd place, so The podium positions are all stretched out quite a bit in this one, and I think maybe if my dad hadn't got stuck behind Kalen so much on the first lap of this race, possibly we would have seen a bit of a better battle for second position here. I think John has the pace in this first race of the day to secure the victory quite comfortably. As we're on board with him right now, once again he's doing a fantastic job. He's, I guess, the class of the field right now by the looks of it. He's going to be looking to secure those extra 5 points for the pole position / fastest lap as well. So here we are onto the last lap of the race here for John. He could possibly lap Kalen on this lap as well. You can see if he looks across there, that was my dad. So my dad's about half a lap behind here. And John's up to the top hairpin once again. He's just taking it easy, I think, at this point. He's not pushing 110%, but he does realise that George isn't that slow anymore. I mean, maybe when he first started, George wasn't the quickest, but I think it's fair to say George has learned quite quickly. In a Filching Manor, he's definitely getting the hang of it. And we saw with the nice move down the inside, there's a possibility for George to go for some good results in this championship this season. So there we go. John's won his third race of the season there. Congratulations to him. He drove a great race and I think thoroughly deserved to fair play to him. Well done, John. Good stuff. So he won the first race of the day. Second place went to George. Fair play once again. A really good race from George. Happy to see him do such a good job in this one. Third place went to my dad, and I think I'll be a bit disappointed with that one, to be perfectly honest, because, well, he lost a lot of time in the early stages of that race behind Kalen, and I think he probably would have had the pace for second place. So yeah, I think he'll definitely take the negatives from that one and try and put in a better performance in the next race here, the second race of the day. So the starting order for the second race of the day will be the finishing order from that one. So that means that John will start on pole position, George will be in second position, third place will be my dad on the grid, and fourth place will be Kalen at the back. But we know that even though George is starting in second position here, he typically gets a really good start. So that should make it really interesting off the starting grid. So, exciting times here ahead for the Go-Kart Championship. Another race on the cards, and I think it's going to be a very, very close one once again. We saw George was quite quick in that one, and maybe if he can do a bit of a better job, I should say, with his defensive driving, there's a real chance here he could go for the victory in this one. So my dad is going to line up on the grid here. He's looking forward to another race here, but this time is he going to be able to go for the victory? So any minute now the lights are going to go on and we're going to be ready for the second race of the day here. You can see on board my dad here, John is directly in front, George is just to our left hand side here. Exciting times. What's going to happen here? Because I think that George is going to probably get a decent start, but then it's going to be close between my dad and John. Pole position isn't always the best place to start in terms of the grid. So here we go. George has a great start. My dad also has a better start than John here up to the first corner. Something about starting on pole position, it's a little bit more uphill than starting in second or third place. So sometimes, annoyingly, if you're a bit of a heavier driver, starting on pole position is a real negative. So George has taken a comfortable lead here on board with John. He's in second position right now. Third place is my dad, fourth place Kalen. So on board here with John as he tries to close down George here through the corner where George is making a lot of mistakes here through, I'd say, the sort of last proper corner on this track. And as we go up across the start-finish line to start another lap here, John is definitely closing in, but I've got to say, George is really good on the brakes up at the top hairpin. You can see, okay, he's slightly messing up. He's going a little bit deep in there, but he's definitely going through that sort of sequence of corners of, as quick as John, really. And considering he has a lot less experience than John, I've got to say that's fair play to George, but it's quite close through here, side by side between the two of them. And George has lost the position there to John. Is he going to be able to get back past him here? And he's to get a good exit out of here and then really nail this first proper turn here. So he's right up behind John here. He's taking a bit of a tight line to that corner and has got a bit sideways. That's really compromised him here. If he'd taken a bit of a wider line through there, he might have been able to get past John up to the top hairpin. It's going to be side by side for the lead of this race, but no, John keeps the lead of this one. George slots in behind there. Fair play. That was some nice close battling there between the two of them, but I think there George maybe should have just taken a slightly better line as they crossed the start finish line there. Got a good run through there, and then John would have had to have defended a little bit harder up at the top hairpin. But on board here with my dad, he's trying to close down George here. This is for second position, and they're quite close to John as well. You can see George is putting the pressure on John up to the top hairpin. It's very close between them. I think George has braked a little bit too late through there, and through the sequence of corner, I think my dad is going to look to the inside. Yes, he is, and George is running wide. George is running wide, then he's onto the grass and he spun it. Oh no, George was going so well for him. He was very close to taking the lead of this race, and then he's made a mistake and spun it around. So that's big news in this race, because George was putting the pressure on John, and he had sort of strengths in different parts of the track, which meant the race between them was very, very interesting. So that's very disappointing for George, but my dad's got through into second position now. And George has lost quite a lot of time there. He's lost probably at least 6 or 7 seconds in that little spin. Thankfully, you can see there's a little bit of rain on the sort of lens of the camera. Thankfully, there wasn't more rain, because the grass could have been too slippery for George to escape there. But he managed to spin it around and get through there quite comfortably afterwards. And yeah, he was very lucky to get out of that relatively unscathed. Of course, just time lost in the overall picture. So on board here with Caleb, he's doing a good job. He's learning the track. As I've said already, it's a very tricky track to sort of come into the deep end here and really just get to, have to learn. Really, it really is tough. So I'm just wanted to congratulate Caleb on just getting into the kart, because he isn't really a kart racer really. He was just helping with the university project, and he just wanted to give it a go. I was like, Caleb, give it a go. You'll enjoy it. And I think he somewhat enjoyed it, but he came to a round later on in the season which he enjoyed a bit more at Bayford Meadows, which we'll speak about in the future, I should say. So then let's on board with my dad here. He's not really close enough here to John to get the victory here. You can see John's probably got about a 4-second lead at this point. Unless John makes a big mistake, I can't see him losing this lead, and this could be the 4th win of the season for him. Now my dad's trying to get past Kalen. He's losing quite a lot of time here. I don't think this will be enough time lost to see George get onto the back of him here, but nonetheless, really interesting stuff there to see that Kalen, he's doing the right lines and that sort of stuff. He isn't going too slowly through here. Now on board with George, he's actually gained quite a bit through that whole melee here, and you can see my dad is a bit of still of a speck in the distance, but he's probably gained 2 or 3 seconds through getting, my dad getting stuck up behind Kalen, and George is just so quick down these straights. You can see why it's kind of tough for him on the brakes here, because he's sort of never really sure exactly where it's going to be, and he's got a bit wide once again. If you can nail that top corner, if you can get that sort of line through that top sequence right, I think he's got a decent overall lap time in him here as well. Maybe down the bottom corner, which we're going to in a minute here. Maybe if he gets this corner we're going to here, if he can get this one right, if he can get sort of the line through the corner a bit better, he's on course for a very good lap time here at Filching Manor. It's just those 2 little things which he needs to iron out, but overall fair play. He's going a lot quicker, and a little bit of sliding through there probably doesn't exactly help. But nonetheless, George is very quick around this track on this day against these competitors. He's doing a good job, and down the inside of Caleb, that's a bit of a dive bomb move. I think Caleb maybe wouldn't have appreciated that too much, because obviously first time in the go-kart, still getting used to it. But yeah, I think Caleb saw it at the last minute and just didn't turn into the corner. So fair play, Caleb. Good racing there, and good awareness not to turn into that corner and get involved in an accident, because that's something you definitely don't want to be doing on your time in a go-kart, especially really early on. That's not what you want to do whatsoever. It's back on board with Caleb once again. He's definitely getting quicker, I can tell you that. His lap times were falling. I think his first times in qualifiers, sort of first race, were sort of 37s. They were coming down to like the 36s, the 35s, and I think by the last race they're down to a 34. So fair play. I mean, I remember back to my first time coming to this track when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. It was around 2007, I think it was, and I was doing 33s for my first ever time here. And obviously that's as a massive motorsport fan I was coming here, and yeah, now obviously I can do sort of 28 7s and 28 9s on a good day, but still, first time go-karting, it's always a tough experience. Now on board with John here, you can see there is a bit of rain on the camera lens here. I'm wondering if more rain could come down in this race, and that could make it really exciting. Well, maybe for the competitors. I was lucky, I was just watching. I didn't have to... Ooh, contact there with the tyres on the inside there. John may be clipping the corner a little bit too finely. But nonetheless, I don't think the rain's going to affect this, because this is the last lap of the race. John's drove a great race here. Not put a foot wrong, pressured George into a mistake, checker flag is awaiting. John takes his 4th win of the season, and congratulations to him, he just drove a great race. Now on board with Kalen, we're going to show the rest of his last lap of the rail as well, because he ended up a few laps down. But yeah, just a really good job from Kalen here to just sort of keep it on the track. He wasn't making silly mistakes, he was just sort of learning slowly, and I think, of course, the sort of rain in the air didn't really help. Getting a little bit of rain on your visor is not the most... comforting thing in the world when you're learning the track for the first time. But across the line there, Caleb scores some more points. 4th place, of course, a smaller grid means that even if you do finish in 4th place, which is technically last, you still get some good points for it. So the results: John wins his 4th race of the season, and that puts him clearly ahead of Tom now in terms of race victories. Tom had won 3 races up to this point. Now that's John's 4th win of the season. So yes, even though Tom wasn't competing here today, I think John genuinely could have had the pace to beat Tom if he was at this event. So it's been a really exciting battle between the two of them. So yeah, will be good to see what happens between them in the later rounds of this championship, whether we'll see Tom and John battling it out for the overall championship. It'll be really nice to see. But yeah, second place went to my dad in that one. He drove a good race and didn't really put a foot wrong, capitalised on George's mistake. George, of course, finishing in 3rd place there. He'll be disappointed with that, and I think he had the pace for the victory in that one. And then at 4th place was Kalen. So last race of the day, it's a reverse grid. Currently the fastest lap is being held by John. If someone else can beat that in this one, I mean, I'm looking at George. He's got a good chance as well. My dad also never can be counted out of the equation. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. George still putting his gloves on. He's running a little bit late here. And do the marshals know? I don't know whether they know that George is still putting his gloves on. He's just about ready in time. He's put his visor down and everything's just about ready for the lights to come on. And George is going to be starting second on the grid. Again, he started second on the grid, I think, for every single of these races. And away we go here. Lights are out. George gets his typical great start up to the first corner. He's going to be leading. And John and my dad are both going to be looking to try and get past Kalen here, who is just behind. And I don't know whether who came out through second place through the opening exchanges. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. We're going to cut to John's camera here. He's got past Kalen. He is chasing down George, who's made a mistake here on the first lap of this race. It's getting all close between the two of them here. George is getting very sideways, side by side between the two of them. This is going to be the part of the track where George is inherently quicker, and he does a good job of going side by side here through John. He hasn't twitched out too much there. George was struggling through that corner and drifting out a bit, but John much earlier on the brakes than George. Yes, George is very late on the brakes there, but still he's just about managed to get through. There's a bit of contact there as John hits the back of George and sort of sends him off in the other direction. It was definitely not intentional there, but George maybe struggling a bit with the kart here. Cold tyres here once again for the start of this race. So back on board with George. Is he going to be side by side with John? No, it isn't. George is actually clear right now as we go down the straight again. He's going to be building up a nice margin here as we go up to the braking zone. As long as he doesn't mess this up too badly, he'll be leading out of this corner once again. And George is doing a great job in these opening exchanges. He's messed it up a little bit here. He really needs to get used to that. Now on board with John, we're sort of getting a perspective, a third-person perspective now of what's happening with George. He's taking the tyre line through the corners, whether that's just natural or whether he's trying to defend from John, I'm not too sure, but it's definitely slowing him up a little bit here. And now side by side between the two of them ever so slightly, and maybe for like 0.1 of a second they were side by side, but George pulls clear as soon as they get to the straight, and you need that lightweight. It's up to the top hairpin. John is getting that slipstream up to the top hairpin. George braking very late there, doesn't spin it, but that was on the limit of adhesion there for the kart. I think if any later on the brakes there, he could have been pirouetting off into the barrier. So fair play, George. He just about judged that correctly. So back on board, trying to see whether John can get past George here side by side. I think John might get him this time, or are we going to get to the part where the power is needed? Yes, once again, George just has the power and a bit of a slide, and George loses the position there. A little silly mistake, and George has lost the lead of this race. So he's down to second position, but on the brakes, he's very late down the inside. No, he can't quite do it. I thought George was going to go for it there. He's very good on the brakes at the top hairpin, and maybe following John might help him out here, trying to get the reference braking a little bit better. So through the middle part of the lap, John is pulling clear here, but is John going to be able to keep the lead on this next lap of the race? It's going to be very interesting to see whether George has got the speed in a straight line to close in here. So round across the start finish line and up to the top hairpin here. George is just so far back here. It's not going to be a chance for an overtake here into the top hairpin, but maybe it is. Oh my goodness, that's very, very late braking there from George. Absolute fair play, side by side between the two of them here. I think George just pulled it off. That's quite incredible. What an overtake that was there from George. I've lost my words. That was fantastic stuff from George there. He's getting sort of one side and the next from John right now though, but that was a great overtake at the top hairpin. John definitely did not expect that. Side by side once again through the part of the track where George lost it, but is George going to be able to go past this time? John is now sternly defending the inside line. He knows that George is able to pull off these great overtakes, but this time George tries around the outside, but it just doesn't work out. So John consolidates that position there, and good stuff from him. I think he's now in a good position unless George can pull out another great overtake, and fair play actually, he's kept with him through this middle part of the lap, and if anything this is the closest George has been when he's behind John, so this could be another potential overtake here. It depends whether John defends the inside line here up to the top hairpin. I think John's going to defend the inside line. Yes he is. He's not going to lose the lead, is he? It's very close on the brakes, but George doesn't quite manage to do it. Wow, that was close. That was very close. Now on board with my dad here. He's now challenging George here for second position. My dad probably knows he is quick enough to get past George here, but it's just, is he going to be able to make it happen? Because we saw how tough it was with John, and John's definitely got the pace advantage over everyone in this event so far. So is my dad going to be able to get past George? He's lacking so much speed in a straight line. I think it's going to be tough for him, you know. I don't think it's going to be able to happen. It's looking very tough for him. Now on board with George, he's getting past Kalen, who's now a lap down. John might have lost a little bit of time getting past Kalen as well. You can see John isn't that far ahead in the distance here, so a little mistake from John could see George taking another victory, and which would be his second of the season. Of course, they're both battling out for the fastest lap award, as well as my dad, who's on board here. And ooh, slight contact with Kalen as he tries to lap him. That's going to have lost him quite a lot of time here as he tries to lap Kalen. I don't think now second place is going to be possible for him, as he's lost a significant amount of time here. I think, I could be wrong, but I think this might be the last lap of the race here. So, yeah, all chances of second place are gone there for my dad by the look of it, which was really unfortunate for him. But John, what an incredible day he's had here at Filching Manor. He's got the fastest lap points. He's got all 3 race victories. Absolute fair play. What an incredible race from him, and wholly deserved as well. I mean, he sometimes doesn't get the rub of the green when it's larger grids, but I think this time he really deserved that. So just congratulations to John. Also some great racing in there from George. Kalen, of course, just getting used to the track, and fair play, he did a good job. I think my dad will be a little bit disappointed with his results here today. I think would have been looking to score at least a victory here today, and that's going to have lost him some points in the championships of both George and John. So, very interesting results there. Of course, John wins once again. Really good job from him. Happy that he scored 3 victories. Of course, I'd have liked to have seen George and my dad battle it out a little bit, or maybe my dad be a bit closer in terms of battling for the victory. But John really deserved that one here today. So, the standings after this one. So a great job there from John, has actually took him to the top of the standings here. He's now got a 14-point lead over myself, who of course didn't take part in this round. Tom also not taking part in this round, meaning we both stay on the points we were at before. Then we look below. George is in there in 4th place in the standings right now. He is on 119 points. And then we got my dad in 5th place in the standings right now. He is currently on 88 points. So, there's not completely out of the equation here that you could still finish something like top 3 in the championship. But he's definitely going to be looking to try and beat George in this championship, even though George obviously took part in the first 4 races of the season where my dad did not. Connor not taking part in this round, so he stays on 49 points. And then Kalen picking up a triple of 4th place finishes, means he's on 24 points at the bottom of the standings right now, but hopefully more people will be joining this championship later on in the season. Doesn't matter if not, but it'd be nice to see more people in the championship. So there we are, another really exciting day of go-kart racing. Just really good fun as always to go commentate over this, and just congratulations to John. Really deserved that, and nice to see him at the top of the championship as well. But it means now I need to go a bit faster in these last 3 rounds of the championship. We've got Bayford, Filching, and then Lydd, the championship decider at the end of the season. And at this rate, it's going to go to that championship decider at Lydd. But of course, to me, Bayford Meadows could be very important. I'm going to want to try and retake the lead of this championship. I know Bayford is a track I do quite well at, so I've got my fingers crossed that hopefully it'll be some good results for me, but we'll see when that video comes out soon. So thanks for watching, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all around soon for another video. It's been Alex, and I'm out of here. Goodbye.